Hi, and welcome to The Working Songwriter, the show where today's best songwriters come to talk shop. I'm your host, Joe Pug. Each episode here, we host a distinguished guest, and we ask them to go deep on their inspiration, on their process, on the general ups and downs of making a life in music. So, whether you're a grizzled veteran explaining to your manager that you should just do what Bob Dylan did and sell your catalog for $300 million, or else a scrappy upstart trying to sell your catalog to a website called royaltyhunter.com, this is your show, because ultimately it is what every writer seeks most, an ironclad excuse to put off actually writing. Hey guys, it's the second Friday of January 2021, and I thank you for joining us. This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. I'm old enough to remember when you had to pay somebody called a web developer to get a website made, and it would always be some guy named Raphael who drove a Mazda Miata with only 3 hubcaps and a Limp Bizkit bumper sticker. And old Raphael would charge you about $1,000 for a website that would be obsolete in 6 months, but it's the future now. You guys, that's not how it works anymore. We're allowed to have nice things now. One of those nice things is Bandzoogle. Bandzoogle powers the websites of tens of thousands of musicians around the world, from weekend warriors to Grammy winners. All the features you need for a professional website are already built in. Hosting and a custom domain name, dozens of fully customizable design templates, tools to sell your music and merch commission-free, mailing list tools, social media integrations. Listeners to the Working Songwriter podcast can go to bandzoogle.com to try it for free for 30 days. Just use the promo code TWS, the initials of our show, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. If you'd like to hear some of my music in the coming months, every single Sunday night, I'm over on my YouTube channel for Sunday Songs at 9 p.m. Eastern. It's a live stream. I'm live every Sunday night. I'm playing tunes live. I'm taking questions live. I'm taking requests live from people in the live chat. It's a really interactive experience. We're building something of a little community over there on Sunday nights, including many listeners of this podcast. So come on over and be a part of it every Sunday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, over on YouTube. Finally, if you enjoy this podcast, if you'd like to help it remain a viable endeavor for me, here's a couple things that you could do to help. First, you could become a supporter of the show over at Patreon. Patreon is a platform that allows you to directly support creative endeavors that you find meaningful. You just head to their site, Patreon, you search for The Working Songwriter, or you search for my name, and then you sign up to kick in a few bucks every month. Think of it as a voluntary subscription. A subscription that you don't have to pay, but that you just choose to pay because you dig the show. If just 1% of our listenership would kick in the price of a cup of coffee every month, it would make an immense difference for me. So thanks to everybody who's already done that. If you're not in a place financially where you can do that, I get it. I've been there before for sure. You could still help us out by either leaving us a good rating in the iTunes store or simply telling a friend about the show, spreading the word about the show. And the simple math on those two last things is that they will help me much more than they will be a pain in the ass for you. Okay, I'll end all the harassment right there. It was a blast talking to Sean and Sara this week, and I hope you enjoy our conversation. My guests this week are a brother and sister duo who have a long tenure in American music that belies their age. Sean and Sara Watkins grew up in Carlsbad, California, playing bluegrass together at a local pizza joint, along with their friend Chris Thiele. The three of them eventually burst onto the national stage as Nickel Creek when Alison Krauss produced their self-titled album in the year 2000. They went on to sell millions of albums together, win a Grammy, and maintain a furious national touring schedule. It was on breaks from those tours in their new home base of Los Angeles that Sean and Sara sought refuge in a project that could exist creatively outside of the Nickel Creek framework. They found it in a residency at the legendary nightclub Largo. Under the mantle of the Watkins Family Hour, they produced shows that paired a who's who of LA musical talent that spanned generations and genres. Frequent collaborators include Fiona Apple, Benmont Tench of Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, Jackson Browne, and even the actor and comedian John C. Reilly. The Watkins Family Hour has gone from a beloved residency to a full-blown musical collaboration between the siblings. Their latest album is entitled Brother Sister, which is out now on 30 Tigers. The Guardian has said that they are akin to royalty in American folk circles. Pitchfork declared that their album was a crystalline collection of songs, and Paste magazine said that their latest effort was filled with ravishing contemporary folk arrangements and earnest storytelling. Just before Christmas, I jumped on the phone with Sean and Sara to hear about their journey so far. Sean and Sara Watkins, thanks so much for being a part of the Working Songwriter podcast. You guys kind of came up, you didn't kind of come up, you came up in the bluegrass world, which is a world where you think more of playing standard songs, playing other people's songs, and yet here you guys are, you're accomplished songwriters of your own these days. When did songwriting enter the equation for you guys out of that bluegrass world?
Not for a long time for me. You started writing earlier.
Chris and I started writing maybe like a couple years into the process, and we were listening to mostly like 90s country, so that's what our songs sounded like. But we, within the bluegrass tradition, you sort of just, there's not really, it's not like the singer-songwriter element is that prevalent. It's kind of mostly just focused on playing the standards. There's a well-known and very large repertoire of bluegrass standards that you have to choose from, and we kind of started writing a lot later on, and we also didn't have that much to write about. That's also the truth. I mean, we were very sheltered, and once we got into our teens, Chris and I started writing more, and but they were really not great songs, and Sara started writing a little bit later, and they just were really great kind of off the bat.
So it sounds like in a way. Go ahead, Sara.
Go ahead. I was going to say that, because we were listening to bluegrass and country music, that's the kind of stuff that was being written about. And even though that wasn't our life experience. So I think it took a while for us to figure out how to write about our lives honestly, in a way that also that kind of tracked with our past, our in terms of lyric content. Like, you learn these words and phrases and that are so common in older material, and then you like apply that to your life, and you might sing phrases that you wouldn't speak ever, like, to hoke it up a little bit, and it feels kind of clunky at first. And I think there's this kind of path you have to go where you figure out how your life experience fits into the tradition that you came from.
Yeah. I mean, you really, it is sometimes grating to hear a writer who you're like, I'm pretty sure you grew up in the suburbs, so I kind of don't want to hear about a train whistle wailing right now. You know what I mean?
Although there are exceptions, there are people who've grown up in cities and you would never really know it, Gillian Welch grew up here in Los Angeles, and her writing, I mean, she spent a lot of time living in Nashville and traveling around a lot, but the way that she writes about other parts of the country and there's those rural parts of America, you would never know that she
does, but she very consciously, I feel like she very consciously and often does it from a character's perspective. I guess I was, I think anyone can write from any character's perspective. I think I was just kind of referring to people who kind of sing it from their own perspective, but you can just tell, it just kind of rings hollow. Like, I know what you mean, Sara. Like, it takes a while to hear that older stuff and then find the equivalence in your own life so that it comes off as genuine and authentic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's funny because there's such a, there's a lot of songwriters that are coming up in a scene now where that's just what you do. the base level is that's not recording or anything. That's
I know.
Just, the base level is just you start and you write songs. The singer-songwriter thing is it's a genre now, and it's a huge genre, and people refer to people like Taylor Swift as a singer-songwriter just because she sings and writes her songs. But there's also there's like a folky. When I think of the singer-songwriter name as sort of a genre, it sort of brings to mind a specific thing, and a lot of people are doing that, and it's not focused around any one particular kind of, it's not framed by an older tradition. And this is not a judgment of good or bad. I'm just saying it's, our framework was the bluegrass, tradition and the instrumentation and the way that they thought about life and the things that they thought were worth writing about. And so, that's a one thing that is always going to stick with us, I think. And even though we're fans of so many other kinds of songwriting.
Do you think that the bluegrass community has come around more to bluegrass, that bands that write their own stuff, more than it did, say, 15 or 20 years ago?
I think that it came around before. It came around like in the 90s, in the early 2000s, or maybe like even in the 80s. There were bluegrass bands that were starting to, write their own material. And, I mean, I'm thinking about bands that a lot of people might not have heard of, like Lonesome River Band or like Blue Highway, bands like that. Or like, even like Alison Krauss would record other people's songs. I don't think she wrote that much, but she was one of those people that brought singer-songwriters into new songs into the genre. But it's been a while that it's been cool to do that.
I think that was probably, I wonder if that was tied to just more music, or music being more accessible, and just needing more songs in the repertoire, because for a while there, there were only a handful of bands that really led each decade, probably, in bluegrass, and we had a while to look back and celebrate those songs. But as CDs and people were able to collect more music and really find songs, and particularly with the internet, obviously, you mine that stuff as far as you can, but you also need new material. And so I think that's probably just expanded more and more for original songs. But I think the guy who that for me, I think Sean and I have talked about this, that Tony Rice brought a lot to the bluegrass community, because he was recording songs written by a lot of different songwriters. He was responsible for the first Randy Newman that I ever heard.
Bob Dylan.
The first Bob Dylan, Joni Mitchell.
Yeah.
So, a lot of people. He did a lot of songs and recorded them, with extraordinary chord changes and
Gordon Lightfoot.
Piano. Yeah, tons of Gordon Lightfoot.
Yeah.
And
for those of you that don't know, Tony Rice is mostly known as like the kind of main guitar hero for bluegrass. He changed the way acoustic guitar playing happened starting in the 70s. And he is another person who didn't really write. I don't know of any songs that he wrote himself, but he was an amazing collector of songs, like Sarah's saying, and brought those songs to us, bluegrass kids he was like the guy who goes out and collects the stuff and brings it back to the village and shows shows this village what else is out there. It's like, you guys,
totally, there's
this amazing place where you can go and there's these different kinds of rocks. Check them out. You've never seen these before. And so I think it was really important for us to have, him and people like Allison, because we wouldn't have heard these exotic songs.
Sometimes people who don't write themselves actually have the best taste when it comes to choosing repertoire.
Yeah. I wonder if that has to do with, they have such high standards. They're like, well, this is a great song, and I know it's a great song. I don't know if I could write one as good as this, Right. I hadn't really thought of that.
That could
the
be
psychology
it,
behind that, maybe.
I remember at the start of my career, I went and toured on my first album in like 2008, and I was getting booked for like 90-minute slots, and I had 7 songs, and I had 2 good ones. You know what I mean? And so it forces you into playing a lot of crap. But if you're just choosing, whatever songbook you'd like to choose from, you can put together a hell of a strong show.
Yeah, and like you say, once you get to that point where you can say something like, I've got 7, I've got 2 songs I really like, and maybe the rest not as much, you can sort of start to identify what it is about those songs that you like and do more of that. And I think that's a transformative experience for a songwriter. Sometimes it happens earlier, sometimes it happens later. I think for me, it happened later. And in a way, it's just kind of finding your voice as well, getting comfortable in your skin, comfortable with what you want to talk about. But,
a lot of times for me, I'll, between projects, Sean and I, with the Family Hour, the Watkins Family Hour, we do, it's been a monthly live show, a variety show. We play with a band of guys who's around in town, and special guests who are coming through, or who might live nearby. And it's a great way. It started as a great way to just play our favorite songs and just have like a laid back show after being on tour and focusing on a specific repertoire and doing it, quote unquote, right every night. Mm-hmm. And so we started the Family Hour as this way to just play our favorite songs and play our favorite cover songs. And when we started, I think I was 21, and it was...
When we started doing Watkins
Family Hour. When we started doing Family Hour, yeah. Nickel Creek was touring 3 weeks on, 1 week off, year round. And it was the only way that we could just... For me anyway, figure out what do I want to play?
Yeah.
Right. What songs make me feel good to play? What songs do I just want to sing once and never sing again, and just on a lark? This sort of local residency revelation, and that was a really, really useful gig. I didn't really start writing until about that time, or maybe a little bit after, because I think probably because I was just singing a bunch of songs and figuring out what I like for my own self, rather than in the context of Nickel Creek for this very specific purpose.
Yeah.
And the first song that I ever finished was doing that, silly songwriters game where you pick a title and everybody has to write the song by a deadline. We were on tour with Glenn Phillips, and he introduced us to that idea. And it was a revelation because it was silly too. And we were so intense as kids, young adults, getting everything right and being profound and serious, and it was this great exercise in no, write a song called Greer Zoller. That's the name of our waitress. We're gonna write a song about her in 24 hours. Everybody's due by sound check,
Yeah.
And it was that was how I started writing songs, because all of a sudden it was the first time that I had an excuse to just write something, get it out, and it felt like I was popping a zit or something. It was very important.
And also, because Glenn, he introduced this idea to us. I think he just called it the game. We played it for 2 weeks, and he was like, okay, it doesn't have to be a great song. It just has to be a song. It could even be instrumental. It just has to be called, we're all going to write songs with the same title. And he came up with the title, or someone did, the night after the show, when we would play it the following night after the show on the bus. And there was one called On Ice, because I think our bus was
it was wintertime.
Our bus was slipping on some ice. And there's another one called Locking Doors.
Mr. Poppy, do you know the popcorn machine in Ames, Iowa at the what shop?
It's like a garage.
It's like the something shop.
Yeah.
The music shop, or the...
No.
I'm sure you've been there, Joe.
I thought you were going to say...
It's
I thought you were going to say at the world's largest truck stop in Iowa. I've been there.
No, but we've probably been there as well. But it's there's a venue it's attached to the University of Iowa, and I think it's called the Something Shop, and it's like
the music shop, or the
yes.
It's like an old garage, and there in the corner there is a popcorn machine that you can just go up and get popcorn from, and it's called Mr. Poppy. And we had played that venue and enjoyed some popcorn, and Glenn was like, let's write songs called Mr. Poppy. And so they're just stupid, and I think that, I mean, some of them were just kind of asinine titles, but that was encouraging to us to just write a song no matter what. And also, it was the first time I'd ever been given permission to write a song that wasn't great. Like he said, just, it could be a verse and a chorus and not really good. It just has to be something.
Yes.
And that was the first time that I'd ever experienced, what people who do, those writing practice, I forget what that's called, that book, the writer's...
The Artist's Way?
Shoot. The Artist's Way, yeah, where you're supposed to get up and you just write, you write whatever comes to your head. It's just a way to keep the creative flow going and not get stopped up. And, our good friend David Garza gave us some good advice that was similar, where he said, if you're feeling stuck, just sit down and write a bad song. Write the worst song you can imagine. And just
commit to it.
And commit to it and let it just be a bad song. And then move on.
Like, try and really write the worst song you possibly can. Like, really get in there. Quarterly, cliches, everything.
Yeah, and I've done that before. And one time I did that, I was like, okay, I'm just going to not try to do anything fancy, and I'm not going to shy away from cliches. I'm just going to, the first cliche that rhymes, I'm going to do it. And one of those songs ended up on my last record, and it's not particularly a great song, but it's not a bad song.
See, I'm not, and I don't want to take the conversation in too much of a left turn here, but I've never really talked about cliches on the podcast before, and I think I kind of have a hot take on cliches that I want to run by you guys. I think,
please,
yeah,
in poetry, not cool. Don't put any cliches in there, but songs are not poetry. Songs are coming at listeners in real time, right? So
right.
There's only so much information that a listener can take in at once in a period of time. And I think it's very useful to use strategic cliches that frame a more authentic line. So if you frame a really authentic line with a couple of kind of like, pretty easy to listen to cliches, it can really make that authentic line pop because people haven't been having to do too much computing of the lyrics up until then.
Mm-hmm. Also, it can be, depending on the character that's singing the song, like we're talking about with Gillian, like Randy Newman does that a lot. I was thinking about songs like Marie or something like that Randy Newman wrote, where he is in character, plus his voice sounds so, it's just so rough and not conventional that when he sings something like a cliche or, I love you, baby,
wow.
Like, I love you, baby, coming from a drunk sounding character voice is totally different than like a teeny bopper type of song. You know what I mean? So
that's a really good point.
That can totally frame. He can get away with so many things and phrases. Not get away with, but they're even better because it's framed within that character. We're learning this song "Fairy Tale" in New York for a Christmas show, the Pogue song, and the first verse is Shane MacGowan singing, and it sounds all drunken and out of tune, and it's great. But one of the lines is like, "I love you, baby," and then the line ends with, "and all our dreams come true," and it's so cliched, but because he's singing it as like this from the point of view of a character in the drunk tank, at in an Irish,
in the
jail.
In the drunk tank.
Yes, that's the first line. It was Christmas Eve in the drunk tank.
Oh yeah.
And so because he's singing from that point of view, and he's singing all our dreams come true, it's just so sad and heartbreaking,
Yeah.
So
context matters.
Context matters, and I think you're right. Like, because it's coming to you in real time, it's wise to remember that easily digestible little phrases are much better in the song form than as a poem.
I remember our friend Tom Brousseau, I can't remember the exact context, what lyric it was, but there was this line that I was talking to him about from one of his songs, and it was an odd word to use. It was an odd word to have to rhyme with, and he said something like he always does that does the odd one first. The odd word, say you're in couplets, right? Like A, B, A, B. Mm-hmm. The first B is when he uses the odd word so that the last line goes down easier. And it's not like, oh, you really had to stretch to find a rhyme.
Oh, I love that. I'm stealing the hell out of that.
So, yeah, I've done that a couple of times. Find a way to switch it around so that it doesn't feel strained.
You're totally right. Because when it does come second, you're like, okay, really kind of reaching into the bag there, aren't you? Reaching into
you really use the rhyme dictionary on that one.
Yeah, so you flip the script and yeah. That's so great. It's like, because it is a stretch, but if you make it first, then all of a sudden it's intentional.
Yeah,
it's
make it sound like you were smart in the first place, and then you relaxed a little on the last line.
It's not like, well, this is the only word I could think of that rhymes with that one, so here you go.
Oh yeah, I mean, my real pet peeve. I think my pet peeve as a person, as a songwriter who listens to songs a lot, my pet peeve is when I feel like I can hear the writer trying to sound smart. I fucking hate it. I hate words. I do. I just can't get over it. I hate words. There's certain writers that when they use a big word, for some reason I trust them. And I think, you know what? That person, that word probably just did come up naturally in the way that they think and feel and express themselves. But I feel like I can smell it a million miles away when someone thinks to themselves, you know, like, you know, I don't even know what the big word would be, but like apropos.
I know a friend of mine wrote a song years ago and used the word pedantic, and I remember hearing it being like,
that's exactly the word.
Come on. I mean, I've heard that word. I think I maybe know what it means, but like surely there was a better word than pedantic.
That is the perfect word to describe the phenomenon that I'm talking about there. It's like, I know it's a word. Yeah, I know it fits in there, but you know, you're trying to fool people into thinking that you have an MFA or something like that.
I mean, I guess it rhymes with romantic, but I'm pretty sure he did not use romantic. I feel
like you can get away with that a little bit more if you're not using it as like the anchoring word for a rhyme. Slide that in the middle of a line.
Yes.
Right.
For rhythm.
I'll give you that.
For rhythm, for phrasing.
I'll give you that.
But if you're going to emphasize the rhyme, you're making the people remember the word. You're making them hear it once and then remember it when they hear the next one.
Well, it's also just like, it doesn't serve the purpose of the song being the song. It serves a purpose of, look at me, I'm a smarty pants, you know?
Yeah, unless that's the song. The thing is, like, there are all like every rule is there. You can name a million reasons why it should be broken.
Yeah, there's. I wish I could remember the word now, but Jackson Browne sang a song one time. It was not one of his most popular songs, and it had this word in it that was like pedantic, but not as obnoxious. And he, at the end of the song, he looked over and he's like, ever heard that word in the song before? It was just like pretty badass, right? And it was because he did it in the right way, but it was one of those words
it totally
where you're like,
worked.
I wish I could remember what it was, but he was definitely proud of the fact that he'd worked it in and that it didn't seem
forced.
Yeah, assholey.
Yeah, no, I'm not saying that there's a rule with any sort of word. I'm just saying that I can smell it from a mile away.
Yeah,
you know,
I know.
I really think that you kind of hit the nail on the head there, Sean. I think what I don't like about it is it takes you out of the world of the song. It proves to me that there is a higher, there's something above the song in their hierarchy of value, basically. You know what I mean?
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Because I mean, one of the most important lessons that everyone learns, you know, every successful songwriter, musician, is that whatever you do is, you know, in terms of production style, or instrumentation, or just how you arrange the song, is to serve the song. You know, and the first time I had ever heard that concept, it blew me away, because I was like, wait. The song is supposed to be a vehicle for me to shred. So that's the main thing that guides my decision making with how a song is put together. And, you know, when we first started going to Largo in, you know, early 2000s, maybe 2001, we started meeting musicians like Grantley Phillips, you know, David Garza, Fiona Apple, Sam Phillips, and Amy Mann, and you know, really great established songwriters who had a completely different way of looking at the song, and it was just about how it made you feel. It's like, how does this song make you feel? How does this song make other people feel? It's not about the playing. It's not about all the stuff that surrounds it. It's just about the song. And
I love the idea.
That was one of the places where I really started to learn that.
You just put the image in my mind of you in your early 20s showing up to a club in Los Angeles and Fiona Apple playing a beautiful brooding song and you trying to shred all over it.
Oh, yeah. Well,
yeah, it's a great vision, isn't it?
Or, one of the first, also Ben Montench, who's been a part of our shows for a long time, who's, was in the piano player, keyboard player in the Heartbreakers forever, is an incredibly talent. He can play anything. And he is kind of known for being an absolute minimalist, like he'll play one note in a song, like that song. The first time I heard him do this was in the song Hurt, the Johnny Cash version of Hurt. Mm-hmm. And he basically, and I know Rick Rubin there's a famous story of him telling Benmont to keep playing less, play less, and he ended up just playing one note the whole time. He just pedals on that. Dun, 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 dun. It may have been like a fifth, actually. Mm-hmm. But that's all the piano does, and it's perfect for the song. It makes the song so much more real and stark. And he could have done so much more. He could have played beautiful piano chords. But that can be said with songwriting too. The same thing. Like, you could use really simple, plain language and have it be way more powerful than a fancy word.
We did something in the van once. I toured with Joffrey Muller, who's Robert Ellis's bass player. And what Joffrey liked to do is whatever band he was touring with, he'd like to copy and paste their lyrics and put them into like a text analyzer. And he had a text analyzer that would figure out like what grade level you were writing at. And
gosh.
Yeah, and what was really funny is we found the higher grade level that you wrote at, the less popular your band was.
Wow.
Like what you really wanted to be doing was writing at basically a 7th to 8th grade level is where you really wanted to be.
That's the sweet spot.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. And I think even like the New York Times is at like a 10th or 12th grade reading level. I believe I could be wrong on that.
Right.
I don't want someone to fact check me in real time here, but yeah, I mean that's a real thing, and that is serving communication. Just trying to get ideas across, and simpler words. I'm certainly a fan of them.
Yeah, and the other thing is, fancy words can really, they're supposed to be more descriptive, but they can really be ambiguous when you use a lot of them. They can really leave, like there's so many articles, like heady political articles that I've started reading, and I stop after the first paragraph because it's just too much of them, and I know that this person is thinking has some complicated thoughts he wants to get across, but there's this string of complicated words that just are so taxing on me. And there's that podcast, The Daily, where the New York Times guy interviews really smart people who come on and say something really complex, and they use all this, legal and political language. And his job, he goes, so what I'm hearing you say is this person lied and is going to court. Like,
yes.
Like literally and then the person goes, yes, that's correct.
So I think
so it's like it's him digesting this big language, and all of a sudden
regurgitating
we understand it. Yeah.
And I think anytime you hear a person in a room being able to do just exactly that, I think that is the smartest person in the room, like hands down.
Mm-hmm. But isn't that what art is for? Like, thinking about physical art, like sculptures, and songs as well. I mean, it is regurgitating or fully digesting life, and it comes out of them in this other way, and that's where metaphor kicks in as well.
Yes.
And where we go back to the simple truths of life and the life cycles and destruction and things that have been constant throughout the world's history, And I mean, that is really what what art is supposed to do, find this way of emoting life experience to people without all the distraction of the specificities.
And also telling the same stories, in different ways, because we need more of them. People think, oh, this has been written about, or, someone's already written a song that's like this. It's like, yeah, but when was that? 10 years ago? We need more. We need we need a new version. We need a current version. And I think that's one thing that stops so many people from writing, stopped me from writing a lot of songs, because I thought, oh no, Wilco wrote about that 4 albums back, and it kind of sounds like that, and it's sort of a similar idea. I'm like, A, not everybody's heard that song, and B, who cares if they've heard it? It's gonna sound like me no matter what.
Yeah.
And like Sarah was saying, art through the years is about explaining and talking about these common things that we all go through, and the more of that, the better.
Yeah,
there's something reassuring about it, like without wanting to like be redundant, because nobody wants to be redundant, but it's really nice when things like, I think the rhythm and the consistencies of certain stories can be reassuring.
Yeah, I mean, I think specifically what you're talking about, Sarah, is the idea that we write about these same archetypes, these archetypes that hold true throughout different generations. And yeah, I would totally agree. I would say that it's like taking archetypes and fitting them into new mediums. I think a lot about something like I don't think that us as kids in the 1990s weren't going to go read Hamlet anytime soon, but as soon as you tell Hamlet through, the lens of a lion named Simba and his father named Mufasa, just the idea of your father being usurped by his sneaky, evil brother, and you having to come back.
Holy crap! Is the Lion King about Hamlet?
It borrows a ton.
I had no idea.
Yeah, it borrows a ton.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
If it's not explicitly,
that's totally
so.
True.
There's nothing like it when two siblings sing together. Turn on a Louvin Brothers album sometime and listen to how their two voices actually make one. It's breathtaking. What Sean and Sarah have built together professionally is admirable and inspiring, but what really stuck with me during our conversation the most was how close they were as siblings. Having grown up together as kids and worked together as adults, their interaction in our conversation displayed such a genuine intimacy. And that's how it can go when a relationship with a sibling goes exactly right, when it remains pristine. There's almost no one else in the world who knows you better because they know where you came from. There's a lovely poem by a poet named Linda Paston about that longing for that intimate bond with a sibling, entitled To My Imaginary Siblings. Dear brother and sister, you who helped me survive the bleakness of my only childhood, who were as real to me then as the characters in my thumbed-over books. Are you grown now? Did one of you become a surgeon like our father? And do you both still mirror our mother's severe beauty, which I endowed you with, even though it passed me by? I had my children early, thinking they would be like my own siblings, and though they never were, in the busy boredom of domesticity, I somehow left the two of you behind. If you were still around, would we chat on the phone each morning in the warmth of our separate cups of coffee? Or would we have quarreled by now over which of us was the more beloved, or over what our parents left us? Would I have to give one of you our mother's opal stick pin, and the other the 2 lustreware jars that sit in my kitchen now, remnants of our childhood home, that antique house where, in the secular heaven of the remembered family, you are simply 2 more ghosts?
Yeah.
Talk to me a bit about this new album that you guys wrote as Watkins Family Hour this summer. Well, it is explicitly under Watkins Family Hour, yes?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, we've always kind of focused on covers and doing weird things. Like Sarah was saying earlier, it was an outlet for doing stuff that wasn't roadworthy, wasn't the Nickel Creek songs that we'd recorded. And
specifically, we would look for cover songs that would be easy for a pickup band. We would like, sometimes there'd be a song that we'd want to learn and be like, it's too much, that, there's just too many weird things that happen. It'd be hard for someone to follow along. And even though like the people who are playing with us are very capable of following along with something, we would choose songs that were probably like a couple verses and a bridge, and a couple of verses, chorus, bridge, and not too many chords.
Or if they were complicated songs, they were songs that everyone would know. One of them would be like the Jackson 5 song that we did the other day.
I Want You
Back, which for the guys who are in our band, that's like, Stairway to Heaven for them or something.
Sure.
Like it's just in their DNA. But yeah, we would do these songs that were, it was like the antithesis of our arranged, writing our, singing of our own songs on the road. And that's what it was for so long as a release valve. But then more recently, Flanagan, who owns Largo, had been encouraging Sarah and I to do more duo shows. And we even did one show that was just a duo. And that was like a big turning point, I think, for us, because it forced us to sort of mine out stuff that would happen as we, just playing as a duo that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And
to hone in on specifics, because when you play, these shows are imagine like Sean and I with probably a bass player that's played with us a couple times throughout the year, one of two piano players, maybe a drummer, maybe somebody else, and a bunch, maybe pedal steel player, a bunch of other guests, maybe like 3 guests. And so we're learning at least one song from each of the guests to like be their house band, and then hopefully bringing a couple new songs to the table ourselves. And we're just rehearsing at sound check, and so we're trying to make it stuff that we're trying to work with what we have. So they're simpler songs, and also, you hone in on a couple arrangement things to give it some form, but then when the show comes, it may or may not happen. Like everybody's just kind of doing the quick draw of short-term memory. Yeah. So there's a little bit of this like wild and woolly kind of fun thing where like sometimes stuff gets pulled off and sometimes it's way better than you thought, and sometimes, it just wasn't that great. And when we do a duo show, what we then have to do, and for this record is, we have the potential of really getting it right because we're controlling all of the factors. So then we started arranging songs for specificity and trying getting the most out of what we could do with our 2 instruments and our 2 voices. And so when we started writing the record and arranging all the songs, the arrangement process went into the composition of each song. And that's really what we were going for, just trying to get as much bang for our buck as we could.
Yeah. Like the idea that there's also the idea that we've got all these amazing musicians around us that we call on that usually show up, but we love I specifically, speaking for myself, I love the idea that we could do a show without anyone else around, and it would be fine. So we started working on like making the most of just the 2 of us, and then the idea of making this record came up, and that was exciting because it was the opposite of what we've been doing with the Family Hour, which is, like what we've been talking about, covers, simple songs. And so we just started writing, and I think one of the first songs was Just Another Reason, which sort of helped frame the vibe for the rest of the record. And we showed it to our producer, and he had some really great thoughts on it. He was like, let's take what you have as the chorus, let's make that like a coda at the end, like an outro. And we moved that around, just real blocky moves. And all of a sudden a vibe kind of came into focus, and then we were able to kind of focus more on writing the rest of the record.
The 3 songs, I think, that really, that was the first step. And then we also brought in the cover of Neighborhood Name, I think was second or third, and then
Taylor Ashton and Courtney Hartman.
Taylor Ashton, Courtney Hartman song from their duo project, And then was it Fake Badge was the third one? Cure was the Cure.
The Cure, yeah.
Yeah. So once we had all the three of that was kind of the picture of what became sort of a scope of the record.
Yeah, because, it's like you're creating a little world. I like thinking of making a record in terms of creating a little tiny universe that has a certain set of characteristics. And that's not to say you want all the songs to sound the same, but it's nice when they have a similar character. And once you have 3 songs, that to me is like a good place, a trifecta, You can kind of see this. The slow song, the slow waltz is kind of has this vibe. The faster song has this. It's got a non-conventional, song structure. So that's cool. We can do that, in other songs.
And make a little footprint in all those little places.
It's really and that's the most fun. That's the most fun part of the process to me, is when you start to get that feeling. It's like someone was saying the other day, like, the best feeling is when you have a crush on someone. Like, that's the best. And I was thinking, like, yeah, that is. That's like, I mean, there's all the other stuff that goes along, between then and like getting married and, all that. But that feeling when you have a crush on someone, it's kind of the best part. I mean, it's just one of the best feelings, and that's sort of the feeling that I love in the process of, writing a song or making a record, when you start to see things come into focus and you're like, ooh, I like this.
Because you don't know what it's going to be until you make it. And
totally.
Especially because Sean and I hadn't really, I think when you're in a band, you've got a little bit of an idea of what it's going to sound like, because you've probably been playing a bunch of shows and it's been a slow ramp. And Sean and I certainly had that. We knew a little bit what we were dealing with, but we'd never written together as a duo. And so it was a little bit, it was news to us what it was going to sound like.
Right. We both come out of pretty busy times. Sarah had been doing a lot of stuff with I'm With Her, a couple years of touring with that. And I was doing my, solo records and touring, playing with various people. And we were always, once a month we would do a show. But like Sarah was saying, we hadn't written together. And this whole project was sort of a chance to check in and see where each of us was at with, things like just how you think on a certain topic, or has this ever happened to you? Or
kind of get to know each other in a different way again.
Sort of check in and be like, we haven't really, even though we're talking and seeing each other all the time, there's certain conversations that hadn't happened for like 5 years, and the kind of conversations that can only happen really when you're writing a song, because you're kind of having to, mine out stuff.
So what is the dynamic like then as siblings writing together? Because in any, writing or creative relationship, there has to be a fair amount of someone throwing out an idea and the other person just being like, no, it's not that. You know what I mean? Or you have some critiquing going on. Do you guys think because you're siblings that critiquing is easier to do, because you're siblings it's harder to do because there's a lot of baggage, or that doesn't even come into it for you guys?
I don't think it's harder.
No, I think it's also the time of life we're in right now too, where we I think trust each other's judgment more than ever. There's also not that need to have like your idea used, like we used to. You attach yourself to an idea and you're like, oh, this has to be used in the song, and if it doesn't really make it into the song, you're like, oh, it's just like you fight for these ideas, and
because your identity is attached to it. I feel like when you have a few different projects going on, or when you're lucky enough to be in, I always think if you're in one band, you should be in two. Like there should never be one outlet. And that, I think, aids what Sean was saying about like you're not being too attached to your ideas, because there's another place for it. Like if this finger picking pattern that Sean does, this super awesome finger picking pattern, doesn't work for this song, in my opinion, then he's probably gonna be like, great, I'll do that with something else. What's this other thing?
Yeah, or even, I mean, it's good to get to the point where even if there isn't a place for that idea, you're still okay with it because you're not attached to it. And you're like Dan Wilson always. He said a bunch of times, do you know Dan, Joe?
I don't know him, but I'm going to interview him next week for the podcast, which I'm really, really excited about.
He's so lovely.
He's so lovely, and he's the best guy for this kind of conversation.
I can't wait. I'm very excited.
He always talks about like, I don't know if he said this to me, or he does a lot of really great songwriting tips online. He even has like his own book of cards now. It's like
I saw that.
songwriter's version of Brian Eno's oblique strategy cards, and one of them I think stems from something he said a while ago, which was just don't save your best ideas. If you've got an amazing chorus idea or something, he co-writes with people all the time. The thing is, like, don't save your good idea for what you think is going to be the good song or the good songwriter. Like, just put them out there and trust that more good ideas will come. And to me, that's really valuable because you're trusting yourself. It's scary because
I thought about that a lot.
It's like, I mean, I've definitely done that where I had a really great idea and I showed it to someone I was co-writing with and they took it in a different direction or didn't make as much of a big deal of it as I would have. And I was like, oh man, I wasted that idea.
Or worse, you hold back and you're like, I've got this great idea for a song, but I'm not going to use it right now because I'm not confident in my co-writer.
Yeah.
Like, it's just bad. It's bad for your energy.
Yeah. And it also, if you're freely giving out like that, then, it sounds kind of woo, but you're kind of opening yourself up for more stuff to come. If your philosophy is that you're, as a songwriter or an artist, you're a vessel for ideas and thoughts that are out there, then you can, you don't have to hold on to an idea or a thought. You can just put it out there and know that something else will come,
I find that to be very true.
Come through you.
That if I try to be a greedy little pig with a truffle and just hide it,
totally,
then it really dams up anything else that would be coming out. And I don't know what that's is.
That's not what it's for.
But if you don't clear it and get it over with, new really nice stuff doesn't come through. And guess what? I don't know why I get scared about it because new stuff for the last 36 years of my life, new stuff has always come. It's never dried up. It's fine.
Yeah.
But it's hard to trust that. It's hard to have faith.
But I mean, again, that's like, I feel like that's one of those life constants, right? Like we sweat to like get rid of stuff, to like clean out our system. And we, plants grow from the ground and everything needs to come through. There's like, if you try and stop something up, that's no way.
Yeah.
There's no way there's life in there once you stop it up.
Right.
Yeah.
And I feel like, why wouldn't that be true? It feels like it's true in nature all outside of us. Why wouldn't it be true inside as well?
Yeah. And it's the same. It's like no one stores up a lump of love and then gives it to somebody,
Right.
It's like something that it's a constant that sort of is always there and you can access it or it can come through you, and and it's one of those, I love these kind of conversations because it kind of boil down to overall life, good things to think about and overall life lessons, and they're not just specific to songwriting. They work in all different, a lot of different areas of your life.
And I another thing that I've been thinking about to that point that Sean just made is I find that a lot of my favorite songs, I relate to on a few different levels. And it's not just like there are some songs that feel a little bit simple to the point that they feel one or two dimensional. And I think that there are certain songs and lyrics that even if the whole song isn't a three-way metaphor for something, there are lines in a song that speak to different aspects of my life. Like, I can't think of a cover song, so I'm just going to use my own stupid song as a reference, but there's this song that I wrote recently for my daughter Sam, and I was thinking of it as a song for me to sing to her. And then I just kind of like felt myself singing it around the house during, dark COVID times. And I realized I was singing it to myself to like comfort myself.
Yeah.
And then I realized like, holy shit, I think she could sing it to me too. And I think I really like it when songs work from many directions, even if it's not every line. But, there are little points of light that let you know something maybe has some more depth to it than you see at a distance.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just kind of feel like if something, whether it's a song or not, checks out as true in as many different and disparate situations as possible, you have to be working with something there. at some point, there has to be some heft and some objective truth to it.
Yeah.
Well, I look forward to the day, Sarah, when your daughter can sing that song to you. That sounds like a beautiful thing. And I thank you guys for stopping by the podcast and telling me about your journey so far. I really appreciate it.
All right.
Bye.
This week's show is brought to you by Bandzoogle. Built by musicians and for musicians, Bandzoogle is an all-in-one platform to build a beautiful website for your music. Use promo code TWS, the initials of our podcast, TWS, to get 15% off the first year of any subscription. The Watkins Family Hour's latest album is entitled Brother Sister, available everywhere music is sold or streamed. If before we meet again you sit down to write, please remember, an expensive drug habit is not a song, a compelling Instagram account is not a song, and most importantly, reverb is not a song. So let all of that take care of itself, and for you, just keep your eye on the song.